Hello everybody and welcome to the fifth video in our series of videos on the Reformation. As always, we begin with our learning outcomes, so by the end of this presentation you guys should know who John Calvin is and what predestination is. You guys should know how Calvin organised his City of God, and finally you guys should know one fact about Ulrich Zwingli and John Knox. We are going to start with a man called Ulrich Zwingli, who was the leader of the Reformation in Switzerland. In 1519, he began to preach about the need for reform in the Catholic Church in Zurich in Switzerland. He attacked the corruption of the church, the sale of indulgences. He disliked the idea of fasting and during Lent, and the use of images in churches or places of worship. Zwingli and Luther were in contact with each other, and Zwingli supported Luther's main criticisms of the papacy and promoted ideas like priests marrying. However, they did differ on the idea of the Eucharist. Zwingli said that transubstantiation and consubstantiation were wrong, and that the bread and wine was in no way the flesh and blood of Christ, but instead just symbolic. So while ideas over Eucharists are causing massive problems, it can be hard for us to understand this now, but at this time it was literally a matter of whether you went to heaven or hell if you were doing the wrong thing. Zwingli set up an alliance of Protestant territories in Switzerland, but was killed in a battle against Catholic territories in 1531. Probably the most famous person associated with the Swiss Reformation was a French man called John Calvin, who lived from 1509 to 1568. Calvin left the Catholic Church in 1530, and he was forced to flee France in 1534 after an event known as the Affair of the Black Placards, where anti-Catholic posters were put up around towns in France, causing Protestants to flee, with some of them being attacked and burned at the stake for heresy. Calvin went to Basel in Switzerland, where he wrote a book stating his beliefs known as the Institutions. Now, Calvin's main idea was the idea of predestination, which was the idea that God had selected, even before the creation of the world, who would go to heaven and who would go to hell. Those selected by God were called the elect, and this of course causes a big issue with the idea of free will, but we won't go down that rabbit hole here. He also believed that the Bible was the only source for the teachings of Christ, and again that there were only two sacraments. He was then invited to Geneva to preach and kicked out, and then invited back again in 1541 to lead the church of the city. Here Calvin set up a theocracy, which is a system of government in which priests rule in the name of God. Calvin dubbed Geneva the City of God. He set up a whole new church system based around four groups. So the first group were the pastors who preached their services from the Bible in the vernacular. The second group were the teachers who were in charge of schools and educating everyone to read the Bible. The third group were the deacons, who took care of the sick and the elderly. And the final group were the elders, who behaved like a secret police to watch over that people followed Calvin's strict rules. And these rules were pretty strict. Drinking, gambling, blasphemy, and even dancing were banned in Geneva, with very strict punishments, as we saw in our study of the Renaissance, where Michael Servetus, who was burned at the stake for heresy and extreme blasphemy by Calvin in 1553 in Geneva. This was the man again who said that the heart wasn't where the soul was, but was actually a pump, and this was seen as sacrilegious. Calvin set up a very successful education system, which also trained missionaries to go abroad and spread his ideas into different countries. The religion spread quickly in France, with nearly 1 million followers joining. These French Calvinists were called Huguenots in France, and we will be looking at them when we look at the religious struggles in a later video. He also inspired a man called John Knox, who set up the Presbyterian Church, that will play a massive part in Irish history, especially in the 1798 rebellion. Now, John Knox was a Scottish reformer who lived from 1514 to 1572. England had gone through its own Reformation when Henry VIII broke off from the Catholic Church in 1530s, which we will look at in our study of the plantations in Ireland. Now, Knox was part of the new Church of England, which was established by Henry VIII, but he had to leave when Mary I became queen and wanted to re-establish Catholicism as the main religion. While in exile, he went to Geneva, where he embraced the teachings of Calvin in the 1550s. He returned to Scotland in 1560 and was a leading figure in setting up the Reformed Church in Scotland and stopping the reintroduction of Catholicism under Mary, Queen of Scots. Now, this is just a taste of some of the revolutionary Reformation movements around at the time. And all these differing and conflicting ideas would lead to many struggles and wars, which we will look at in a future video. And it would also lead to a reaction from the Catholic Church in an event known as the Counter-Reformation, which we will be looking at in our next video. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. So by now, you guys should know who John Calvin is and what his idea of predestination is. You guys should know how Calvin organised his city of God. And you guys should know one fact about Ulrich Zwingli and John Knox. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys got something good from this video.